During that year, not necessarily during the year, but over 5 days, we had what is called the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So before the now MLS dominated CONCACAF Champions League, because MLS is clear, the CONCACAF Champions Cup was the premier tournament of that region. In 2000, it was the 36th edition of the tournament. This thing has been going on since 1964. It's pretty crazy to think about. Like, we didn't have a professional league until 4 years before this game kicked off, and it had been going on for 30 years before that. Kind of crazy to think about. This tournament, like I mentioned, was going on for 36 years. Only once had another team from the United States won it. That was DC United in 1998, which I'm surprised we haven't talked about. We might need to do a MLS history revisited and go past things that we may have missed. Um, 3 spots in this tournament were awarded to MLS sides. One for the MLS Cup, one for the MLS Cup runner-up, and one for the Supporters Shield. In 1999, while qualifying for this tournament, DC United did the double, Shield and the Cup. So MLS lost a spot, and they only sent 2 teams, DC United and the LA Galaxy. However, this didn't necessarily remove a spot. Like, MLS didn't lose a team. They lost the opportunity to add a third team because the Supporters Shield champion in the 1998 to 2000 iterations of the tournament the Supporters Shield got a chance to play a play-in game against the Summer League winner from Liga MX. If you remember any of our old conversations, by the way, of how Champions League seeding is awarded, this is exactly up this alley. It is just absolute nonsense. This whole thing about the Supporters Shield winner getting to play a play-in round just further proves my point that the Supporters Shield has always been disrespected as the premier trophy of this league. When the loser of a playoff final gets an automatic bid to the quarterfinals, but the best team over 28 games has to get a play-in, the disrespect is unbelievable. Anyways, get off my soapbox. This was also a rather unique tournament. As late as 1998, the CONCACAF tournament was designated in multiple group stages. So 14 teams who had not auto-qualified went into groups of 3 or 4 and played against each other to earn the right to enter a second group stage where they would be put into 2 groups of 3 to determine the last 2 spots in the final tournament against the auto-qualified sides. Yep, it didn't make any sense. It still doesn't make sense. Fast forward to 2002, the tournament expanded to 16 teams and was a straight March Madness style bracket, where the usual 8 teams, it was 8 teams in 2000, expanded to 16 teams in 2002. Now we know that Champions League is a group stage again, with play-in games and things like that. So they've gone back to craziness. Qualification through CONCACAF Nations League and CONCACAF League and all this other stuff. So this tournament still hasn't quite figured out how they're going to get things done, but that's okay. In 2000, the tournament was unlike the past or current installations, where it was not played over months like you would expect. However, they picked 5 days smack in the middle of January to play this massive intercontinental tournament. It was hosted in Southern California from January 16th to January 21st. That meant no need to balance MLS season, preseason, other tournaments, anything like that. Just get in and play. They would start their tournament off against Real España from Honduras. Not a lot of information on this game, but the game was played to a 0-0 draw and went on to penalty kicks where LA won 5-3. It's okay that there's not a lot of information here because the next rounds are where the fun comes anyway. In the semifinals, they were drawn with MLS giants DC United. It was Ziggy Schmidt versus Bruce Arena, the match of the year for MLS supporters. DC United were by far the favorites to win this tournament this year. They'd done the double the year before, won the 1998 version, and in the same year won the Copa Interamericana, another thing that we definitely need to figure out what happened and talk about. Add it to the list. Penalties were once again the name of the game in this semifinal. In the 29th minute, everybody's favorite LA Galaxy head coach, Greg Vanney, steps up and slots away a penalty, followed by a 48th minute penalty for Marco Echeverri. Legendary MLS goalkeeper Kevin Hartman came up massive in the game, keeping off many DC United attempts, including 2 PK efforts from Marco Echeverri once again, as well as pod legend Ben Olsen. At the end of the match, it went into penalties. That's where that came from. Sorry, they didn't get, I forgot to add, they didn't have 3 penalties in normal time. The game ended 1-1, went into penalties, and then he kept out Echeverri and Ben Olsen. LA did not miss any of their chances, and they moved on to the final game against Honduras' CD Olympia. So no Mexican teams did they have to come up against in this tournament, which is very interesting. In Memorial Coliseum, the match kicks off, and fans were treated to a flyer of a Champions League final, for lack of a better term. Olympia opens the scoring by, you guessed it, another penalty, conceded by an absolutely blatant handball by none other than our favorite talking head, Alexi Lalas. The ball gets floated into the box. He goes to head it away, misses it, and it just hits him square in the hand and drops straight to the floor. Penalty is given. Olympia steps up and tucks it away. However, just 2 minutes later, he would atone for his error as he climbs highest to meet a corner, flicks it towards the near post of the goal, and right onto the head of current Chicago Fire manager Ezra Hendrickson, who finishes from close range. Then 3 minutes later, Lalas plays a hopeless floated ball into the box that is not dealt with by Olympia. Toby Jones gets onto the end of it and finishes a one-timed left-footed effort to the back stick. Right after the halftime whistle, Olympia would get one back. After a service was allowed from the right side, it found an unmarked striker named Robert De Lima, who headed home past Kevin Hart. It was the 78th minute when Hendrickson bombed forward, played a combination pass with Cienfuegos, gets in on goal, and fires it to the roof of the net. Now, both times he scored, he did his patented celebration, where he took his shirt, put it over his head, and ran around all crazy. But he revealed underneath his jersey a shirt barring the face of legendary reggae musician Bob Marley, which led me down a little bit of a rabbit hole to figure out why. I came up with this pretty cool backstory. Hendrickson is a native of St. Vincent, which is in the Caribbean, which Bob Marley, of course, is from. And he was a massive Bob Marley fan. He said he always used to listen to his music before games to calm down, get in the zone. And Bob Marley was also a massive world figure as well at the time. So to tribute to him, what he meant to Ezra, the Caribbean, and the world in general, he would wear that shirt and would show it off after every goal. Thought that was pretty neat. After the trophy was lifted, the LA Galaxy, let me rephrase that. So in the 78th minute, Hendrickson scored the leading goal, and LA would be able to hold on and win the 2000 CONCACAF Champions Cup. After the trophy was lifted, it was clear that LA Galaxy had qualified for the 2001 FIFA Club World Cup. However, they never got the chance to participate in this tournament because FIFA's marketing partner, the ISL, had collapsed, accumulating over $300 million in debt. Now, I know what you're thinking, Connor. If only they had ProRel, they never would have had to fold, right? Because you would have never had this debt. It would never been a closed system, and they would have been able to figure it out. Me too. Gosh darn it. During 2001, the Club World Cup was going to be in a group stage. They had already drawn groups before they folded. And LA Galaxy were drawn into groups with a Ghanaian team, Hearts of Oak, Japan's Jubilo Iwata, and Spain's Real Madrid, sparking where the scarf comes from. This Real Madrid team contained the likes of Roberto Carlos, Zidane, and other massive legends. And LA were denied the chance to put themselves up against the best of the best at this time. This wasn't a Seattle Sounders win and then play Real Madrid. These guys were going to play the best team in Spain. And they got it pulled away from them. While they did not get the chance to challenge themselves on the world stage, they did prove to the Confederation that MLS, while a new league, was ready to take on anyone, which is why we proved the same thing by not winning another tournament for 22 years. But that's okay because we're massive now. That is the story of the LA Galaxy's 2000 run to the CONCACAF Champions Cup. My sources for this were a cool YouTube video from CONCACAF YouTube channel. USsoccerplayers.com had a really good breakdown of the run, as well as some Wikipedia.